My speech class hated me, and I had been desperately trying to avoid needing to do speech class for my communications degree. I didn't want to be in front of people. I didn't want to speak. I didn't like the structure that they made you do, and I didn't want to be judged. It felt inevitable to be judged for the things that were going to come out of my mouth, so I didn't want to do it. But it was required, so I went, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I hid, and I hid, and I hid, and I hid, and then I'd have to go. I'd be the last person every single time. And I'd go up there, and I'd be shaking, and I'd be nervous, and I'd been reviewing my notes and trying to make sure, and I'd get started. And I wish I could say the nerves would go away, but instead it just felt like time slowed. And in this state, I was thinking so fast about all the things I was supposed to be doing, and if I hit all these markers, and I abandoned the script partway through because it felt too stiff. But I was also worried about time. And if I could put all of these things into this small little section of time. So I'd hit the major points and hope for the best. And afterwards would come this flood of energy that made me feel equally as anxious as I did before I went in. And I'd hobble stutter off to my seat, terrified. And every time people would congratulate me on my way back. And they'd go, "What are you so afraid of? You're great at this. Can you stop being like this? You're so good. You're so good at this." And I didn't believe them because I was having such a hard time with it. That as soon as I let go of needing to do it the way that I was supposed to, as soon as I let go of being able to avoid getting out of it, and I just accepted that here I was doing this thing, and I had to get up here and talk and say something. In a weird way, it was easy. In a weird way, there was some satisfaction to it. Getting to talk to people and tell them what I thought. That phrase of, if you love what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life, always just felt like such bullshit. It always just felt like such a silly statement to say, because every job has drawbacks. Everything you love has things you don't love about it, right? I should be feeling the effort. I should be feeling like I'm working hard, because that's how I know I earned it. If I'm not making a lot of effort, then it can't be good, right? That's how you know it's good. If you put blood, sweat, and tears into it, if you work at it, if you research it, if you put tons of your time into it, then you know it's good. In middle school, I got an assignment. We were going to draw caricatures for art. And you got to pick whoever you thought was your favorite teacher. I picked the librarian because I loved her, and she was such a wonderful support for me. And then the battle started with my art teacher. I, at that point, had been drawing without grids. She insisted that I made a grid, and I didn't want to. She insisted that I use a light box, and I didn't want to. It felt distant. She hated the way that I smudged. She hated the way that I drew with my pencil. She hated almost everything that I tried to do to achieve this picture. She's like, well, you should learn how to do this the right way. You should learn the technique of this. And for me, the messiness was the point. Not because I liked that it was messy, but because it was the way that I did things. I like to feel the graphite as I smudge it. I like how the oils interacts with my skin and how smooth it makes it. And it doesn't give me that terrible sound that the smudging tool does, because it's awful. I like seeing my mistakes and how I move things over and over and over again, and iterated until I got it right. the night comes that our drawings go on the wall, and I show up and I look at this wall of pictures. And not knowing I was face blind at the time, I'm struggling to find my work. I don't see the image, and all the faces kind of look the same. But I would know that piece of work that I worked on. I know the crinkles and the smudges and the lines and the textures and every piece of effort I put into it. The things that made it special, the things that made it mine. And I was with my teacher, and she finally finds it. And I become horrified. And I get upset. And she goes, "Why are you upset? I think it's great." And it's like, "That's not mine." And she goes, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, this one is different." And so I find my teacher, and I was like, "Where's my work?" And she points. She's like, "There it is." And I'm like, "No, it's not. That's not mine. That's not what I made." And she's like, "Oh, it's essentially the same, but it's better. I told you to clean it up, and you didn't. You wouldn't redo it, so I did it for you." She took my piece of art, went to a light box, and traced it, including my signature, and put it up on the wall with everyone else's. And I was like, "Where is mine?" And she said, "Oh, I threw it away." And so I went looking, and I found it. And I did end up telling the instructor about it, what happened, and she wanted to keep both of them. And I think about this moment all the time, how bad I felt, how strangely sterile the other image that was mine but not mine felt. How even though it had all the right things, it just felt wrong, and this continued for most of my artistic career and almost everything that I've ever done. But that's the way you do things. Art's supposed to be work. And so I should learn these skills to make good art, right? Despite knowing how simple my art is and how I always go about it, I feel deeply insecure about it as well. There's a part of me that feels like it's never good enough, that I've never done enough, it's not professional enough, that I haven't worked enough, that I don't have enough details, I don't know enough. It's too improvisational, it's too lax. And it shows up every time with performances. You can always find me somewhere between 2 hours and 15 minutes beforehand, panicking. Sometimes it's a little panic, sometimes it's a lot of panic. And I'm worried that there really truly is something wrong with the thing that exists in my head coming out of my body. That if I haven't worked it enough, it's not going to be any good. That I'm going to go out there and I'm going to shame myself. I'm going to embarrass myself. That then everyone will see that I'm a fraud and that I haven't really worked hard enough. That I'm not taking this seriously. And I've been learning and mull over ideas for a long time, and even if I don't know exactly how it's going to come to be, I usually know what I'm going for. I know what I want in the end. And I know that if I just let go, it will work out. These videos and videos like it are funded by my patrons. And I have future ideas of big projects I'd like to do, that I'd like to pull off. And I'm going to need support for that. As a minority, I think it's important to support voices that you don't hear from often. And frankly, I'm one of those voices. Society's not set up for people like me to be big for our riches and think that we deserve to be heard. But I think so. I think some. But I think so. I think I have some interesting things to share. I think I have some insight. I think I want to make some art. And I think I can leave a lasting impression on the world. But I just need a little bit of help. If you want to join me on my journey and see some behind the scenes content, consider joining my Patreon. Otherwise, just doing the normal liking, sharing, subscribing things is a huge benefit to people like me. Creatives, and also those who are probably going to get hate comments at some point.